يا راغبا في كل علم نافع.
ينمو العلم ويتقدم بتقنياته ومجالاته، ومعه نطور أدواتنا في تقديم العلم الشرعي. أكاديمية
زاد أكاديمية ينبوعها صاف ليروي غلة الظمآن، والسيرة العلياء عطرة الشدى طيب يفوح لأهل كل زمان. بشرى لنا زاد أكاديمية للعلم كالأزهار في البستان.
بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وآله وصحبه ومن والاه. أما بعد. When we speak about two aspects, khilqah and khuluq. When we say khilqah, we actually are addressing how the Prophet ﷺ's appearance was. His body, his height, whether a person is tall or short, whether he is dark or fair, and the facial description and how his body was. This is known as khilqah. While we talk about al-khuluq, this is the character, which refers to a person's inward characteristics, such as his perseverance, his forbearance, his kindness, his generosity, his knowledge, and the likes. Now, the Prophet ﷺ, usually when we speak about Shama'il, and by the way, one of the best books that talked about Shama'il, and this is the cornerstone of this science, is Shama'il, written by Al-Imam Al-Tirmidhi. And with the grace of Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah has blessed me to explain the whole book, and it's found on my YouTube channel for you if you wanted to get more and more information about this science. So when they speak in the beginning about Ash-Shama'il, they speak about the face of the Prophet ﷺ. In the authentic hadith, Abdullah ibn Salam, who was a rabbi among the Jews, one of their scholars and dignitaries in Medina, he says, when I heard of the presence and the coming of the Prophet ﷺ, I went to look at his face, just to take a glance at how he looked. So he says, I went to look at his face, and the moment I saw his face, I knew that this is not the face of a liar. And this shows you the importance of the face in Islam. It is so important. Imagine this face. It is prohibited for me as a Muslim to strike the face of any human being, whether a man or a woman, whether a grown-up adult or a child, whether a Muslim or a non-Muslim, whether a civilian or a combatant. Even at war, I'm ordered to avoid hitting the face. Imagine that a Muslim, part of his Islam is not to criticize how his wife looks or to say anything bad about her facial features and the likes. This is how Islam honors a woman who lives with her husband. And also, knowing how the Prophet ﷺ looked like from his face is important, because so many people come and say, I saw the Prophet ﷺ in a dream yesterday. And they're very happy. And indeed, they should be happy, because such an honor is a gift from Allah. However, whenever someone says this to us, we say, describe him. And if he fails to do so, as we were told in Shama'il how he looked, in this case we tell him, you did not see the Prophet ﷺ, because the Prophet said, whoever sees me in a vision, he has seen me for true, because Satan cannot impersonate me. This means that he has to look like the Prophet ﷺ was described to us. So how was his face? Jabir ibn Samurah, may Allah be pleased with him, tells us and explains it to us that the Prophet ﷺ, his face was bright. And the brightness of the face of the Prophet ﷺ is not that his face was illuminating in the dark, so you did not need lights or a torch. No, it is something that you see in people's faces sometimes. Sometimes you look at it an individual and say, subhanallah, this brother's face is like really glowing. And I don't know why. Sometimes, most of the times, people of iman, of belief, of sincerity, you can see their faces glowing. You can have this glow coming out from them. So the same thing Jabir ibn Samurah says, I saw the Prophet ﷺ once in a night that had a full moon. And I kept on looking at the moon and looking at the Prophet's face ﷺ. By Allah, his face is more beautiful. And another man asked Al-Bara, may Allah be pleased with him. And he said, was the face of the Prophet ﷺ like the sword? So this is also in terms of shining or in terms of being straight, a straight face. And he said, no, it was like the moon. Ka'b ibn Malik, may Allah be pleased with him, also describes the Prophet whenever he was happy, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his face would glow like if it is a piece of the moon. And it is like the sun and the moon in terms of being circular. Jabir ibn Samurah, when was asked, was his face similar to the sword? He said, no, it was similar to the moon or to the sun. It was round. So now this is not in regards of being shining or glowing, rather it's in how the symmetrics of the Prophet's alayhi salatu wasalam. And Ali, may Allah be pleased with him, the cousin of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he explained that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam was not round as a circle, but it was in a rounded shape. And this shows us that the companions loved the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, that the description was very clear and up to the point. When we talk about the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam in the science of the Shama'il, many times people will speak about his hair. And when you describe someone, you describe him by saying, yeah, this guy is tall, his hair is like so and so. So the hair in Islam is something to be honored, to be taken care of. The Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, whoever has hair must honor it. And how to honor it? To keep it tidy, to keep it washed and clean, and having good smell. And if needed, you apply oil to it to calm it down so that it would not be in a messy state. Hani said, may Allah be pleased with her, the cousin of the Prophet ﷺ, when the Prophet came to Medina on the night of conquest of, when the Prophet came to Mecca, that is, on the night of the conquest of Mecca, she saw the Prophet ﷺ having 4 braids. So braiding the hair at that time is, or was, means of honoring the hair. And that was done by men. And in the description of the Prophet's hair, alayhi salatu wasalam, it was not short and it was not long. So it was over and below his earlobes and above his shoulder level, alayhi salatu wasalam. And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam did not have a lot of gray hair. And some say he did not have gray hair at all. And this is why it was an issue of dispute whether he had gray hair or not. And the reason of confusion was whenever the Prophet ﷺ applied oil to his hair, the gray hair would disappear. And whenever there was no oil on his hair, the companions would say there were less than 20 all over his hair, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. And this was narrated by Jabir, may Allah be pleased with him, Ibn Samurah, and they said that the whiteness or the white hair was in his temple and in the middle of his head and in his soul patch, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. And this was very little compared to others. And the reason of such hair was many, or were many, but the things that were, you can say, highlighted was that the Prophet ﷺ's reaction to the surahs of the Quran. Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, said to the Prophet ﷺ, "You have got gray hair, O Prophet of Allah." And the Prophet said to him, "What has given me gray hair are the surahs of Hud, Al-Waqi'ah, Al-Mursalat, Amma Yatasa'alun, and the likes, إِذَا الشَّمْسُ كُوِّرَتْ, for example." And the reason the scholars say for this is that in these surahs there is the description of the horrors of the day of resurrection and the calamities that befall upon the nations and how the Prophet ﷺ would intervene and intercede for all of humanity. And the Prophet ﷺ's hair in nature was not too soft and falling down like the Asians, for example. And it was not curly and hard like some other races. It was in between. And whenever you read a description of the Prophet ﷺ, you would always find him the perfect person in his description and in everything else, that he wasn't to the extreme, either to the right or to the left, but rather he was the best of the best. هذا والله أعلم ونسبة العلم إليه أسلم وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا محمد.
يا راغبا في كل علم نافع.
ينمو العلم ويتقدم بتقنياته ومجالاته، ومعه نطور أدواتنا في تقديم العلم الشرعي. أكاديمية زاد
أكاديمية ينبوعها صاف ليروي غلة الظمآن، والسيرة العلياء عطرة الشدى طيب يفوح لأهل كل زمان. بشرى لنا زاد أكاديمية للعلم كالأزهار في البستان.